happy to see you here. I'm Andy Pease, the chair, and I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order for the San Luis Obispo County Flood Control and Water Conservation District Water Resources Advisory Committee, WRAC, for today, Wednesday, May 3rd. And we're going to go ahead and do introductions, but just to make sure, do you want me to have voting members? If you are a voting member here today, we're just going to double check our quorum count. If you're a voting member here today in the room, could you please raise your hand?
Scott didn't raise his hand.
Are you a voting member? Great, you lower your hands. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, we got it. All right. Yeah, our quorum is 12. So thank you everybody for being here. And I know we have a couple of folks online as well. And so we'll do introductions, but let's go ahead and just say your name and your organization or organizations. And we'll do everyone in the room first and then go online. What's that?
Charles Borbeau, Tuscadero City Council.
Steve Mulholland, Environmental at Large.
NEB, Napomo CSD.
Jim Guthrie, Road Grant.
Deborah Logan, Templeton CSD.
David Shipping, Environmental at Large.
Linda Chipping, Coastal San Luis Resource Conservation District.
Ron Lenz, Los Osos CSD.
Kelly Parker, City of Julie Rice, City of King and Hendrickson, for
Steve Carter, San Luis Obispo County Farm Bureau.
Dean Desmond, EPC.
Dolores Howard, Environmental at Large Alternates.
Thanks, Dolores.
Mark Sager, Beach.
Anderson, Water Resources.
Greg Graywall, I'll be representing the school cattlemen's school.
Dunworth Fifth District.
Marcia Jeffries, City of Rosario, Water Resources. Angela Ford, Water Resources, Public Works.
Tim Walters, Development at Large, alternate proposing this summer.
Jim Ray, Clean Air Geologist.
Tom Burhan, 4th District.
Scott Duffield, Harry Grant, Community Services.
Steve, City of Slope.
Courtney Howard, Water Resources Division Manager for Public Works.
Joey Style, County Public Works.
Brendan Clark, County Public Works, and RAC Secretary.
Great. And I'll go ahead and you're welcome to pass, but I'll call you by name as I see you. Aline Via.
Channel CSD. I wasn't able to make it in person today, but I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Thanks for being here. Steve Sinton.
Yep, here.
Great. Thank you. Eric Greening.
I am out here, yes.
Just say your name and who you're representing.
I am Eric Greening. I'm environmental at large, and I guess I'm at larger than the folks in the room. I'm in the out here.
At large, really at large. Will
Clemens, General Manager, Oceano CSD, member of the public.
Thank you. Matthew.
Oh, hi, Andy. Yeah, it's Matt Scudato, Santa Barbara County Water Agency.
Oh, thank you. We have two. Matt Cook.
Golden State Water, Los Osos and San Luis Obispo area, and Cypress Ridge.
Great. Jeff Edwards. You may not.
Oh, there we go. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Edwards, and I'm in the private sector, land use and development from Los Osos.
Thank you. Greg Paul.
Hello, my name is Greg Paul, water treatment technical consultant.
Terrific.
To see what's going on.
Great. Welcome. May.
Hello, May Theory, Jal County Public Works.
Terrific. Did I miss anyone? Or anyone in the room? All right. Welcome all, and we do like to take our time to do those introductions because we feel like so much of the value of this entity is so that we can network with each other and share ideas even outside of the meeting. So thanks for taking the time on that. Next item is review and approval of the meeting minutes from April 5th. Any comments or corrections to those meeting minutes? Christine?
Just one typo today. I see there at the last line, San Joaquin is spelled incorrect. J-O-A, not J-E-A.
Joaquin. I don't even see, where are you at?
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah, you got it. All right.
It's a long minutes.
Yes, very thorough minutes. Thank you. Any other comments or corrections? All right, seeing none. And folks online, if you do need to speak, just raise your virtual hand or wave wildly and I'll spot you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. David? What's that? Second? Second, Tom, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Meeting minutes approved. Okay, so now we are at the budget. We're going to review and discuss the proposed WRAC, well, the water district budget for fiscal year 23-24. Consider actions. Courtney Howard.
Hello, everyone. I'm Courtney Howard again, Water Resources Division Manager, County Public Works, here for my annual event with the WRAC, which is the flood control zone general budget request that we have put in every year to the board. Zone general is the countywide tax allocation for water resource planning efforts versus their specific flood control zones that have been established for specific purposes. For example, zone 3 is the Low Coast Lake system. Zone 1A is the Red Riding Creek levee system, etc. So this is the allocation for the full hearing. So it takes more of a broader perspective. We established a budget management policy with the board to help guide our development of the budget every year, and then put those efforts in priority order and then convert that to dollars. So I'll go through these different sections. So the first is that the budget policy kind of outlines what type of activities that could be done with that allocation of money. It's basically more of a planning and evaluation of efforts. So first trying to understand what are the conditions from a water supply and a flood management perspective. Where do we want it to be if it's not where we want it to be? How do we get there? Identifying those opportunities and evaluating those, and then coming up with recommended solutions. And then the start of that is going to those communities that would and asking them if they want to pay for and implement those solutions and set up structure to be able to accomplish that. So that's the work efforts that Zone General does, looking at our existing needs, resiliency, and it also sets up a funding priority, the budget policy does. First priority, again, being looking at those regional services and commitments related to water supply and flood management planning. The second priority is making sure the flood control district itself is good from a budget perspective. If one of our zones needs help, we do loans and cash flow for them. So we want to make sure our flood control district is healthy. And then the third priority is what's remained to be available, looking at whether we need to do specific studies in specific areas throughout the county to help advance and identify those solutions that may be needed. And we kind of group those activities into 4 categories. There's kind of overall management, like what I'm doing right now, making sure we have a budget every year. the Water Resource Advisory Committee, responding to public inquiry, those kinds of things is kind of what I group into that management category. Regional is things like our integrated regional water management program and kind of like master water report, looking at the flood issues around the county. We have several community drainage studies that kind of highlight what can be done in different areas. We have our sub-regional program, which then is what carries out looking at specific solutions like desalination or optimization of the Salinas Reservoir, specific drainage studies in different communities. And then we have our technical program, which is the countywide data collection of stream beach, creek levels, groundwater levels in unmanaged areas, and our rainfall data collection. So that's kind of our 4 programs that we've created consistent with the budget policy to carry out the work. And here's who we are in the Water Resources Division that carries out that work. I also want to mention that we are also staffed to Zone 9, which is the San Luis Creek watershed, and we are in the process of taking ownership of carrying out the Zone 1A program in the Rio Grande levee system. And that's coming over from our Utilities Division of Public Works. Another way to think about what we do is kind of like a cycle. We kind of do that countywide planning, where are we at? Where do we need to go? Where should we focus first? And then, okay, we kind of hone in on those areas and come up with the solutions and ask if they want to be implemented. And that kind of gets shipped off to an implementing entity. So SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, is a good example of the cycle we go through where we developed the plans for the various groundwater basins and asked the question of our board, okay, we need to implement these, how are we going to implement them, and we created a new groundwater sustainability department. So now we're off into flood management planning land and circling back with an update to our master water report, for example. So our priority efforts for next fiscal year, it's a lot of status quo because we do work on kind of long-term planning efforts, but these are the kinds of things that we take into consideration when we're preparing the budget every year, existing commitments, what the board supervisors told us to do, grant eligibility requirements for keeping some of those plans that are required for grant eligibility up to date and looking good. I also wanted to note with the storms, we've had an uptick, as you can imagine, in our flood planning response efforts. And then, we can only do so much with the amount of staff we have. So we kind of take all that into consideration when translating into the specific request. So in kind of that first priority category, we've got our ongoing coordination activities. We're going to continue our integrated regional water management program. We've got round 2 grant that we're hoping to hear about soon. As you've heard, updates on our countywide master water report update, desalination and Salinas campaign. That's in your online updates, and we've had some special presentations about those. In the organizational needs category, continuing to make sure that our zones of benefit are fully funded for the maintenance. While in the meantime, our department is looking at how to update those assessments to make sure that the revenue is enough to pay for the maintenance in those areas. And then we have some grants pass through accounting where we want to make sure that we account for grants that come in and then go out. So you'll see that in our category B, second priority tier. And then at our water planning area level, we've got our monitoring program in specific areas. And so we're going to start trying to track what we do in each water planning area throughout the county. There's about 6, just to kind of make sure that we are keeping a pulse on the whole county and it's not concentrated in one area. So we thought that might be a helpful way to keep track of that. And then flood management planning, as needs and interest come forward, we're looking into ways to help those communities. We've got the Adelaide study, which is west of the city of Paso Robles, out in the fracture rock formation. That's ongoing with the USGS. We also have funding to look at a drainage issue in Avila. So those are some of the sub-regional level and water planning area level facts. So all of that translated into numbers. There's several documents in your packet. There is the budget summary, there's the budget management policy, description of those work plans that are programs that I just went over. So you can look at those in more detail. I do want to note that there's kind of two parts to the overall budget. There's our reserves. And so we kind of keep track of our reserves so that we know how much money we might have for an initial startup or a cash flow or a grant match. But it's one-time money because it's the reserves. It's not our annual revenue. But we also track that annual revenue so that we don't hire too many staff, for example, or commit to too many things beyond what the allocation of the tax revenue is, which is for next fiscal year projected to be about 3.6 million. So that annual revenue translates into about 81% of labor to run all these programs, and then about almost 20% for paying the different consultants and for equipment and running the website, things like that. That's the high level. And then the detail, of course, is in your packet. I have a summary of revenues and expenses and what's left for reserves. Part of that budget management policy set aside 3.1 million to have for emergencies. We're still responding and analyzing all the impacts of the floods, particularly in the Oceano area, the Zone 1A. So it remains to be seen if we'll need to tap some of that emergency funding to get us through until FEMA reimbursement. So that's something to watch over the coming months as we try to nail down what our fiscal needs are as a result of the storms. But that's why that was put there. So we may need to use it for cash flow purposes. And then here's some more detail on those 3 priority areas of work. So you can see those ongoing regional commitments like DSAL, like WRAC, and then our category B, where we have the Iron Young grant going in and out, for example, and then some of the water planning efforts distributed across the different water planning areas. And then kind of in that 5th year, I plug what that reserve amount would look like so that we kind of have an idea of how much we have to work with if a need comes up, just kind of for long-term planning. That's my overview of what the district budget. Pretty much status quo. I'd say the allocations that I put in there were for DSAL and Salinas Dam feasibility studies. Other than that, it's continuing what we've been doing.
I have a couple of questions for you. As to what you were just referring to, the feasibility studies. I know when the raising Salinas Dam came up to the community once before, some years back, it was a huge outcry. And I'm wondering if at this point, all of the comments and the concerns back then are being filtered in at the beginning when this new plan is being researched for feasibility.
Yeah, we're still in the process of scoping the feasibility study. We intend to partner on that with the city of San Luis Obispo since it's their main water supply. So part of that is looking at what structurally would it take, what kinds of beneficiary ideas or exchange ideas are there. So kind of getting those out on the table and seeing what those look like. And then as a part of that process, gathering that input on those different ideas. That's kind of what I see the scope of the feasibility study doing.
Does that include an EIR for the environmental concerns upstream when you start flooding more of the area, which is what was the major outcry previously?
I think it would speak to those things to inform an EIR phase, which would come later.
Okay. And then I have one more going back to the first page here. I don't understand something I would like to explain. The revenues, the first line in what was budgeted starts out the beginning balance of 13 million. And then property taxes 3+ million, and then 5 million, but we only came up with 3 million. That first little walk does not add up. And then there's nothing carried over for any beginning balances later or suggested that there would be. And that happens a couple more times on these lines. They don't seem to quite add up. So can you explain that for me? please?
Sure. Yeah, one big thing that happened last fiscal year, and I should come back up to that. It's this column is current fiscal year technically. We're in this column is the budget for the current fiscal year through June 30th of this year. And a big thing that happened during this fiscal year was transferring out the revenue from the state water sales from flood control zone general reserves to the state water fund. And so that's why the reserves is a lot less at the end of 3 million. Because we subtracted out that.
But wait a minute, but that first column for 22-23 on the top, the very first number on the top.
Yes.
Beginning, okay, that's a different.
She's looking at.
It's the,
Right, so it assumes that.
I'm looking at the page 25. There you go, right there. That right there starts with 13 million, and then you've got a subtotal, and it's only 3 million.
Yeah, we subtract the expenses, include that big transfer out. And so it ends up at 3 million. And this is what we expect a starting one from the budget is. And so it kind of takes it into account without
But the
showing a fund
subtotal
balance.
right there, the first subtotal, up right there, I don't understand what a subtotal means if you're not adding everything up.
That 13 million is
I
not
should
part of
probably
it.
put a line there.
The first 13 million is not part
No,
of it.
because it's not part of the revenues, it's just the beginning balance.
Okay, so that doesn't come under the revenue, okay.
Yeah, I'll make a line there.
Straight, all right, thank you. Yes, sure, thank you. Okay, the line, I did it. Okay, thank you.
Right. Other questions? David?
Now, could you explain how you work with adjudicated basins and places like Shannon that have their own stigma things going? Obviously, the master water plan deals with all those things, but are they financially independent, or is their workings tied into this budget?
Yeah, so the implementation of the groundwater sustainability plans, that's a different fund. It's a county fund that the groundwater sustainability department is allocated for the county's budget. It's not a flood district budget. So financially, they're separated. And then, of course, like you're saying, collaboratively, the flood control district and the county work together on regional water issues. So, for example, the Osceola water project, state water, how can those factor into basin sustainability projects? And so we work across departments to make sure we're achieving goals in a mutually beneficial way.
That means the master water plan will be integrated.
Yes, so we collect that information from, we're in everyone's business, trying to collect from the groundwater sustainability agencies, individual water purveyors, understanding what individual wells are doing, and try to just tie it all together so we understand as a county how we're doing.
Other questions? Tom?
Yes, you said you're increasing your efforts on flood control. Obviously, makes sense. And then if you look at the page 2 of the detailed plan, it's like the remainder of the budget for this fiscal year is 1.5 million. It drops to 836 the following year and years after that. So do you really anticipate the bulk of the effort will all get done by the next couple of months? And then really you're back to the normal level?
I did not include a projection of what I thought we would be working on. Are you talking about in this next year?
Yeah, because it started, the current year is like 1.5 million on.
It's about 3/4 of the way down.
Yeah, so the countywide water flood control plan is on to the 1.5.
First section
1.5
of
then drops to 83, and then it's
Yeah.
around 800,000 and change the rest of the year. So I'm just wondering, it seems like, I realize there's a lot of stuff has to be done right now, but I would think there might be some increased level of activity in the next fiscal year.
You said, sorry, 1.18 or
1.572. Then 22.
7th line down, first column. first column at top left.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
That's all right. It's IDI chart.
You know what I did is, I have to go back and look what was budgeted last fiscal year. It might have been like a specific project that that had a cost to it that we didn't aren't incurring this fiscal year. For example,
It's the water board contract.
yeah, it could have been that.
Yeah.
I have to go back and look. But for example, in this next fiscal year, I did put an allocation for desalinization, and that's why that one went up.
Right.
But that one, I'll have to look back. I believe it was for the master water report efforts.
Okay.
That it was incurred by a contract that this current fiscal year, but would be incurred again.
But I'm presuming you're doing more efforts on like the flood control, that must cost money. So it must be a little bit this year.
Yeah, I didn't include a chunk of that because we haven't been asked specifically to do a study in a certain area.
Any other questions? Tim?
I'm sorry to beat you up on the numbers. You know how you are.
That is our job here,
So
in a nice way.
The 22-23 budgeted in the water planning area, is that information that you're getting from the CSD or whatever to establish a baseline? And is the budget used from 2022, 2023, or is it a carryover? I mean, the numbers that are shown there, are they like what you used in 22, 23?
That's the budget number.
That was the budget number, so there might be some left in there that's just kind of rolling over into the next year.
It would be, yes.
Yeah.
And then the first question is, most of that is the allocation for monitoring those areas.
Oh.
Tom?
One last question. Sorry. Just the title of the agenda item says review and discuss budget, and then consider actions. What actions are we considering?
So in the past, voted on whether or not to support it, the WRAC has, or the WRAC has done nothing. So I kind of left it open because some years you form a subcommittee. So I wasn't kind of sure what you might be feeling this year. So
Yeah.
you're welcome to support it or make comments or whatever.
Okay, and when does it go to the board?
June 13th.
June 13th. So, okay, so in theory, we would meet again as WRAC before the actual meeting, but in order to get it routed, it would, any comments or support would need to probably happen here or be a follow-up agenda correspondence.
How did you, are you establishing the priorities for your projects or things to spend on? The first priority, is that coming out of the supervisors or coming out of your?
It's supervisors and existing concerns, like we've committed to the IRBM program. We've gotten on the board to approve moving forward with updating our countywide master water report, our ongoing monitoring efforts, and then how board direction to look at this.
Thanks. I'm gonna call on Aileen online.
Yes, I'm having difficulty like following exactly what expenses are for certain areas. You are including, I think I heard, for cleanup, right? Because they're like in our area and in other areas where there's levees. The main issue, one of the main issues was that all the debris that was there, like there wasn't enough maintenance done on their levees, and that's why it caused some of the flooding and damage. So are they including that extra? And if so, where?
So yeah, Zone 1A efforts are funded through its own budget. The zone general is kind of the parent fund though. So if the Zone 1A finances aren't enough to pay for recovery efforts between now and when FEMA reimbursement might come in, then that's when the board might direct use of flood control zone general funding to help support zone 1A.
Okay, so it's the zone at 1A has to kick in first, then you will kick in? You'll throw in some funds? Okay, all right, I follow that now. Thank you.
Thanks. Courtney, I had a question in terms of the line item for the desalination. I was a little surprised to see kind of a big number for just next year, almost 1.2 million. And I'm assuming that's a consultant and we're encumbering the funds, even though, so I guess I'm just checking in to see, considering that there's like a 5-year study process, why is it that we're thinking we would go through 1.2 million in this upcoming year?
Yeah, so part of submitting the grant application for helping us fund the next steps for the desal planning study was showing that you can pick up the match. And so I wanted to make sure we included the cash flow we would need, because it's reimbursement based, to make sure that it's in our budget and we can show the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation that we're committed to funding that should they award it.
So in some ways, we're kind of tucking that money, we're encumbering it because we know we will, but we don't actually plan to have a consultant be doing $1 million worth of work in this first year.
It would probably be over 2 years, but we do.
Oh, that's a big contract though.
Yeah, we do think it'll take some effort to gather all the information needed, involve all the stakeholders that we need. So hopefully it won't cost as much, but we did want to make sure that we had enough, and we tried to find, hopefully we can get half of it funded through the grant.
Okay, so that's the whole amount.
For
and
phase
then
2A.
For phase 2A, and so if we can get a grant, that would cover some of that 1 point whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right, any other really pertinent, important questions on the budget?
Out here, I can't seem to get my raised hand function to work, but just wanted to follow up.
Eric, we'll wait, Greg. Go ahead, Eric.
Just wanted to follow up on Christine's question about the Salinas Dam feasibility study. The old EIR is at least 20 years old, and the population in the area that would be inundated if a higher dam were to fail is considerably larger now than it was then. Is the safety of the dam and needed repair, work on the dam to make that higher level secure first and foremost among what's being done now? And then my other question on that is, if we're determining who is going to pay for it and who's going to be the prime beneficiaries, would the live stream agreement need to be renegotiated? And if so, would that need to happen before the environmental review in terms of actually coming up with a project description, and where would that be in the timeline? Thank you.
Yeah, so that is the scope. Key elements of the scope of a feasibility study is what does it take structurally to meet state standards for a dam? Right now it's under federal standards. And what are the potential strategies? Who would be the beneficiaries? Would it be the gates or would it be a reoperation? So kind of laying all those ideas out on the table and then, vetting them against certain criteria, like what's more environmentally friendly, what's less expensive, more bang for the buck. All of those kinds of considerations would then be applied to those different concepts to try to vet or make the best concepts float up, and then everyone and then we go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Greg, then we'll circle back to Lee.
Yeah, almost a year and a half ago, we had a Zoom meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. And they were supposed to put out a report. We know when that report's coming, because the dam's 76 years old. And we know that the interconnectivity between the water in the river and the recharge in the basin has been damaged over the last 75 years.
So they put the study on hold because we need to figure out what it would take for the dam to meet state standards. And so we kind of need to do that feasibility study so that the Army Corps can resume that disposition study and incorporate that information.
So is the Army Corps doing the study to comply with the State Division of Dam Safety, or is the county doing the study with the State Division of Dam Safety?
Yes.
The county is doing that.
Yeah, county in partnership with the city and of course all stakeholders that might be interested in such a project and what it would take and what it would look like. The DSOD will be very big in that. Yeah, so the disposition study was the goal of that study was to come up with a recommendation on who to transfer it to. And until they know how it could be transferred to us, they can't finish the study. So it's kind of, they got so far, now we have to get a little bit further on our end, and then they can finish the Army Corps.
Good.
The water was flowing 13 feet higher than the dam.
Water
It's
going
taking a
down.
little pressure off the.
The urgency.
Yeah, the dam's holding its line.
All right, so David.
Just a note on going forward, many years in the budget here, there are 3 gigantic pump storage projects that have been going through the initial studies at the moment. One including, for example, a tunnel from Lopez to Santa Margarita Lake. And so it would seem that you need to keep an eye open for, it's going to be big projects moving lots of water around, and they'll probably be kicked in by the time we get to 3 years down the line.
Yeah, we have submitted comments on that. I think it's a company that's interested in power generation opportunities.
So we're at a point where we have a couple of options. We can do nothing. We can, if somebody wanted to make a motion to express our support for the budget as proposed, as I'm not hearing any consensus for it. I'm not hearing any suggestions for change. Or a third option would be if we feel like we want to spend more time digging into specific numbers and programs that are behind these numbers, then we could have an ad hoc committee. They would meet with staff, go over it with some detail, bring it back to RAC at the next meeting, and then have recommendations at that time. So those are kind of the 3 choices, the nothing, the recommend approval today, or the ad hoc. I think I captured that accurately. So any feedback on that one, Deborah?
Time to have any further detailed discussions and bring it back to RAC. That would be the June meeting before the budget would have to be approved.
Right, so there's just enough time. We might have to, submit it as agenda correspondence or something, but we could. So the budget goes before the Board of Supervisors on the middle of June, and our next RAC is June 7th. So we would have kind of just enough time, which is strategically why they bring it to us in May. Thank you, giving us that opportunity.
Shoot for April, but sometimes.
Yeah, right. Tim.
I'd be willing to make a motion to approve. I mean, back in the day when we had the ad hocs and we were diving deep, I mean, we did, Courtney's done a great job of kind of bringing this forward. It used to be very limited information. That was one of the reasons we did the ad hoc stuff. So I'd be willing to approve as presented.
Okay. Okay, Christine, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Alternate motions? Okay, we're good. Can we voice vote that? Or do you want a roll call?
I guess we'll roll call.
Yeah, we should probably roll call that one. Okay.
All right, District 4. Aye. We haven't done this in a while.
I know, right?
District 5. Alan?
Yes.
Development at large?
Tim. We should probably do
Okay,
names. 'cause
Tim?
there's
Tim Waters.
Walters.
Yeah.
I love that, though.
Christine Long,
Yes.
David Chipping,
Yes.
Linda Chipping,
Yes.
Jamie Hendrickson. Steve Carter,
Yes.
Lee Nesbitt,
Yes.
Jim Guthrie,
Yes.
Charles Borwell,
Yes.
Lance Warwick,
Yes.
Laurel.
Yes.
Marcia Guthrie.
Yeah.
Andy Pease,
Yep.
Scott Duffield,
Yes.
Ron Munns,
Yes.
Ed Evie,
Yes.
and Deborah Logan.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? Voting member who's present.
Well done. All right, motion carries. Thanks so much, Courtney. Appreciate your work on that.
Thank you all.
All right. Woo. Okay, so now we're going to have the next couple of items on water conservation. And, obviously there's been a little bit of a shift in our water situation, but kind of the ongoing messaging of don't let up now. So we've invited Nick Teague from the city of San Luis Obispo to report on water conservation specific program updates. And then that's going to be followed by an open discussion on water conservation programs that are being implemented. So jurisdictions want to report on what they have going on and what messaging, what either program changes, messaging changes, etc. So Nick.
Nick Teague, I'm the Water Resources Program Manager of the City of Slow. And I'll be doing a quick presentation on the development of our water conservation rebate program. I'll kind of get into the background of the water resources status of the city, why conservation is important to the city, and why we are developing this rebate program, some of the goals that we had in developing the rebate program. The tool that we use to develop this program, it's a tool from Alliance for Water Efficiency. Some of the modeling outputs of that tool, conservation program that we developed and implemented, how we implemented it, and then how we are tracking that and modifying it as we go. So quick background, the city has about 47,500 people. We have over 16,000 service connections. And the city has seen a decrease in per capita water use, although the population's been increasing. So right now, our residential GPCD is about 55 gallons per person per day. So I'm going to click on that star. So this, there's a lot of information here, but the two lines to really focus on are the orange line, which is population. You can see that's increasing with time, so from left to right. And then the dark blue line is the city's water demand or water use. And you can see it's steadily increasing or staying about the same until about 2008. And then we see some of the effects of our implementation of conservation efforts with further acceleration and decrease around 2013-14 after that last serious drought before this one just supposedly came out. So our current conservation efforts are primarily focused on communication and outreach. We put a lot of effort into that. We also do a lot of customer support. We do water audits, so we reach out to customers that we notice have high water use every month. We try to help them find the issues that they're dealing with and come up with solutions for those issues. We also offer complementary items that can help reduce residential water use. We have a retrofit upon sale program, which requests that people update their plumbing fixtures when there's a sale of a property or a change in use of the property. We adhere to the state's MWILO, which is their water efficient landscape ordinance. The city's ordinance is actually somewhat more stringent than the state water efficient landscape ordinance. We also have a school education program, so we partner with an organization called Science Discovery, and they do programs in elementary and middle school to teach about water conservation and water use. We are still implementing drought regulations. However, most of these were already commonplace with the city. Don't water your lawn after 48 hours after a rain. Don't use water to wash down your sidewalk, that sort of thing. The new one that was implemented was the irrigation restrictions. So between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., you're allowed to irrigate your lawn. After that, we're asking you not to. The governor's new mandate, those restrictions are going to be going away. We're going to council in about 2 weeks to suggest that we remove those restrictions. And then as far as rebates, we last offered those in 2017. Those were toilets and washing machines. So since 2017 until present, we had not been offering rebates or any type of water conservation items.
Question on the third bullet, what are complementary?
So we offer shower heads, aerators for your faucets. We have hose nozzles, so the ones that you have to squeeze to turn on. And
Moisture meters, toilet tablets, and shower.
yes.
Thank you. And what about mulch? Do you work with Public Works and the
Christine,
tree service?
let's let him get through the presentation and then have open discussion.
Oh, I thought it'd be easier to remember what it was. Okay, thank you.
So in developing the conservation rebate program, we had 4 main goals. The first was to continue to support a community that's already doing a good job conserving water. Number 2 is the increase conservation among CII properties, so commercial, industrial, and institutional. We've seen a really good water conservation ethic among our residential properties. And CII seems to be a bit of a blind spot for us. We're not sure if water conservation is occurring. We haven't really been approaching CII properties to kind of promote water conservation. So we wanted to start doing that a little bit better. We wanted to maximize water savings with the budget. We were given a specific budget for the conservation rebate program. And then we also wanted to make it equitable across all of these groups. So residential, commercial, industrial, and multifamily, single family as well. And so we'll get into this a little bit later, but one of the really popular rebate programs is turf removal. But turf removal for residential properties is highly inequitable if you think about the fact that somebody has to own a house, they have to have a lawn that's large enough that the turf removal is going to actually make an impact on water savings. And so that was one of the issues we wanted to at least vet out. Is that worth something? Is something worth pursuing, or are there other options that could provide water savings that are equal to something like that? So we used the AWE, Alliance for Water Efficiency Conservation Tracker tool to help kind of understand specific water conservation measures and how they might provide water savings, what the cost of those measures might be, and how combined they would produce a water conservation program. So this is an Excel-based spreadsheet that evaluates water savings, costs, and benefits for different water conservation measures. The input data, we had all the data in various reports, like our urban water management report, our water loss audit, our electronic annual report, all the reporting that we do with the state has all the information. So we just had to kind of compile it all into this one tool. Some of the data you see there, service area data, demand data, water cost data, different data on plumbing standards, landscape standards, water loss standards, whatnot. And then included in the tool are these water conservation measures. And so using research that has been done, they can kind of give you an idea of expected water savings per measure. And then you can kind of toggle the cost that you want to put towards that measure. How much do you want to offer for the rebate? How much do you want customers to pay for those different measures? And then how many, each year. How many. And so our method was to run 3 different scenarios. We started with the biggest and the best. We wanted to include all conservation measures and see what does that give you? What is the cost of that? What is the expected water savings of that? Obviously, something like that is completely unrealistic for the budget that we had and the staff time. So we started whittling it down from there. And the way we did that was with scenario 2. We looked at the benefit cost ratios that the model produces. So how much does it cost to save an acre foot of water for each conservation measure? And the ones that cost the least are probably going to be ones that are going to give you your best bang for your buck. So let's look at those. We kind of did a cutoff on the median benefit cost ratio, took the best 16 and developed a program from that. Again, that's still a little bit unrealistic, but it starts providing that roadmap for developing conservation programs in the future. And so then scenario 3 was, what can we implement now? And with that, we did a lot of stakeholder outreach and looked at what we thought we could actually implement. Kind of the Occam's razor methodology. You might, start with the simplest and kind of build up from there. And so with scenario 3, we had about 12 conservation measures. And you can see the different costs there, the different water savings. Just for reference, active water savings is water savings you're getting from those conservation measures. Passive is the water savings you're getting from the various plumbing and landscape regulations. So here's the list for scenario 1. And you can see we pretty much put everything that we could possibly put in. And so starting from the top to the bottom, on the right, you've got your cost per water demand reduction, so cost per acre foot. So at the top, you've got your most cost effective, at the bottom, your least cost effective. And so you got home water report. Those are things we're already doing now. We're reaching out to customers, helping them understand their water use and where they might be overusing water. We got shower head replacements. HET is efficiency toilets. So toilets and urinals are near the top. And then you get down to the bottom and you'll see rain barrels, gray water systems, turf replacement. Those are all the ones that are really popular. And so it was a bit of a surprise to us to see them so far down at the bottom. But if you some of the studies that have been coming out for years, they touch on the fact that turf replacements are just not really cost effective. So whittling it down, these were the 16 that we looked at in scenario 2. You can see where the cutoff was, and it's pretty easy to visualize why we selected those 16. So going from this to our final program measure, we wanted to get some real customer input. And so that's where the stakeholder feedback came in. And so we developed a questionnaire that we sent out to businesses, because like I said in the beginning, that's really kind of our blind spot. We don't know, what businesses are out there, what's their water use, where would they like to see conservation, and what would really help them. And so this is part of the questionnaire there. So first we asked, what kind of business are you? And then we provided individual conservation measures that were within our scenario 2 that we could potentially offer. We said, would you be interested in a rebate of X amount of dollars for this, this item? And then we allow them to say yes, no, or yes, but, and they could say, we want more money, or, you know, not this year, maybe next year, something like that. So we compile all the data, and this was really helpful for us because, I mean, we can look at the, you know, our meters, we classify them by business type, we have a decent idea. But really getting the feedback on business type, which ones are, you know, responsive, which ones are interested in water conservation. And then the big one was, you know, what were their answers to their interest in these various conservation measures and rebates. And so we use this data to select our scenario 3 conservation measures.
So, sorry, Nick, so just for folks in the back, so the green is the folks who answered yes, blue is no, and then that little bit of orange, yes, if this and such, so we're starting to see across which ones are popular or not.
Yeah, and you can see even within this, the high efficiency toilets are yes, and a lot of times it's what's the easiest to implement, right? You
For
know,
them too.
Yeah, even you know, even though a new dishwasher for a restaurant would probably save them a lot of money and the rebate would be great. They'd have to take the old one out and put the new one in. It's just a lot of work. So people want the easy fix, right? The other thing is, you know, some people say, well, why toilets? You already have the retrofit on sale program. You know, there's the California building code standards. These toilets need to be efficient anyway. But this was an interesting slide from I'm thinking on the name right now. Flume. So Flume did this presentation, and they showed with time, with, you know, the increase in efficiency in toilets, we've seen a huge decrease across the state in water. So the toilet efficiency is the orange line, I believe, and the blue line is average per capita water use. You can see in 2006, 2008, there was a you know, move towards more efficient toilets and a huge drop in per capita water use. So toilets are effective at decreasing water use. And so here's the scenario 3. This is the conservation program we implemented. We included our own water reports because we already do those. That's why the utility cost is 0. We did high efficiency toilets for single family homes. We did pretty much the same thing for multi-family homes, although we added this large landscape smart irrigation controller. There's a big push across the state to decrease the amount of water used in multi-family, residential, single family, pretty much across, you know, across the board, decreasing outdoor water use. And then for CII, again, toilets, we did offer this commercial kitchen fragrance valve. That was one that was really cost effective, and the feedback from our survey was, you know, pretty positive on that one. The restaurant dipper well, I don't know if you know what a dipper well is, but if you go to an ice cream shop and they've got the scoop sitting in that little bucket of water, that bucket of water has water circulating through it all the time to keep the water clean. That's a dipper well. So those can be extremely inefficient or very efficient. I mean, it's great to use it. And then the final one was this large landscape water budget, and you'll see it's, you know, there's a few items between the main group and that one. The reason we wanted to do this is there's a big push to classify and understand CII outdoor water use from the state. There's a lot of regulations coming down the pipeline, so we kind of wanted to get ahead of that. It's pretty close to the other group. It's fairly cost effective, and provides us that opportunity to start understanding that water use before the regulations come into effect. The slide that really kind of pulls everything together and helps you understand that, you know, program 1 saves you a lot of water, right? This active is the savings from the measures, passive from plumbing standards and water, or landscape ordinances. So there's about, 100 acre feet of water stayed there through the life of that program.
A lot of weird noises.
It decreases significantly to program 3, but if you look at the per acre foot cost, it's cheaper in program 3. And so we're really providing a program that can save water. It's easy for us to implement, and it's cost effective. And it's equitable across single family, multi-family. So we kind of hit all those goals. And so how do we implement this? So we implemented this starting, well, it's a little bit retroactive. So starting January 1st, you purchased an item that's available for rebate. You can submit a request for a rebate. We didn't implement it until probably late February, just because of logistics of getting everything out. But we updated our website. We did a news release. We did social media. We did some fun radio ads. And I don't know if you want to click on either one of those.
I think which speakers it's going to come out of. I'll try it.
Toilets are often the main source of water use in a home or business. By replacing old, inefficient toilets with water-safe, leak-old toilets, the average family is estimated to save 20 and 60% of the water used.
Yeah, that's there we go. Sorry for the feedback.
So we've been implementing this for about 2 months now. And the plan is to continue to track water use for the customers that have received those rebates. Oftentimes it takes a little while to see the water savings. But we also knew that, you can have a plan, you can have an idea of what's going to work. But the real world often doesn't match that, right? So, like I said before, that scenario 2 provides the roadmap of how can we evolve this program to still have something that's cost effective, without just kind of aimlessly wandering around and saying, well, that didn't work, what do we do now? We already have that roadmap. So we began reevaluating the funding and available refunds at the end of March. So, should we increase the rebate amount for these ones that we're already offering? We started targeting outreach to potential recipients, to some of the businesses that we know have different wells, some of the multifamilies that we know need landscape controllers. And then we started looking at including additional conservation measures for next fiscal year. And that's where scenario 2 comes into play. We've got an idea, we've got a list of which ones we want to do, and they're kind of ranked in priorities. So we can at least start adding things on with some purpose. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah, I want to thank Julie Ridgway. She's a water resource technician for the city. She did a lot of this work doing the AWE conservation tracker tool, writing up the results of that. And then our partners from Alliance for Water Efficiency are really helpful, guiding us and making sure we're using the tool appropriately.
Awesome. Any specific questions for Nick before we kind of open it up? Yeah, Jim.
Did you do the evaluation from first with oils after 25 years about how many opportunities are left for replacement to look at?
Not
that, to have any sense of that.
Yeah, not specifically. We do have a map that actually lists all of our properties. So this is something that we use for the program. Realtors use it quite a bit. And so you can go on there, you can look at properties, and we've got them color coded based off of whether or not they've been updated to the current standards. And so looking at the map, there are quite a few properties that still need to update. As you would imagine, a lot of more commercial properties. And so just kind of, our big picture, we thought there was an opportunity there, even though the retro program.
So you think the most opportunity was in commercial properties, which surprised
So, yeah, because with our retrofit program, you need to update your plumbing fixtures when there's a sale or change of use. Right? Residential properties have a lot more, overturn. There's not so much commercial properties. People tend to hold on to those. And it's not the businesses as far as turnover, it's the actual complete building. And so that's one thing we're considering updating with our retrofit programs, maybe when there's a change of business license, trying to get those plumbing fixtures.
Nick, we look at toilets and washing machines, that kind of thing. What about water heaters? Now with the tankless or the small on demand, all these different options for water heating in homes, residential. Have you done any studies or comparisons or make at a point where you can make recommendations for residents in their homes?
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't specifically looked at water heaters. But that's a good idea to take into account. I do believe that was on the list of conservation measures. But again, we were looking at trying to create something equitable. So we were looking at conservation measures that could be applied across all, single family, multi-family.
Tim.
Is there a tool like the tracker that you have that is available to the actual homeowner, that they can look at their own stuff and kind of plug it in? It says, do these cool things.
Yeah, I believe EPA has something like that, where you can put in all your stuff and it'll kind of spit out a expected demand.
Well, when you say that you've got that tracker, I can see somebody going in and plug it in, oh, here's what I have. And, especially Gen Zers, they're probably doing that like half. Yeah.
There's an app. There's an app for that.
Oh, my water use. Did I just invent something?
Yeah.
An app for water use. I just was curious.
Yeah, I do believe that EPA has something.
Other questions before we move to kind of an open discussion?
Well, I was precipitous earlier in asking, but with opportunities in the city, do you consider you have those, I forget what the line was there, but stuff, what about mulch? I know that Laguna, for instance, there's piles of mulch here and there, and I know that the city has piles of mulch, which is wonderful for conservation because you don't have to water as much, and the people can come in with a pickup or a trash can load and get free mulch. Do you have that as one of your giveaways?
We don't. It's funny you ask because I just reached out to one of our solid waste coordinators about that because they have been looking to mulch and reducing, yard waste debris. And I know they had worked with a couple of parks to get mulch from the solid waste folks to the parks. And so I reached out to her and said, is there a way we could offer something like that? And I think the logistics of it, offering it, where do you store it? How do you get it from, storage to the place? It's just a hurdle we haven't been able to overcome.
Tom.
Following up on that, about a year ago, maybe it's still there, but right on Prado, right across east of the freeway, there used to be a spot there where there was a big pile of mulch in the street for taking for anybody. Is that gone now?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, seasonally, Public Works has a mulch giveaway. Yeah,
Right, but
that's
it's 24 hours. I mean, you can go anytime and just pick it up.
yeah, if it's when it's available. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Nick. And we'll continue to engage. So what we're hoping for now is if other cities, one, if anybody feels like they got a cool program going on in their jurisdiction and want to get on the agenda to make a presentation to the group, just let us know. But in the meantime, are there folks who just kind of want to stand up and share if they've had any shifting of water conservation programs, changes in messaging. Oh, the question's up here. So does anybody want to just kind of stand up where they are and start? I see, oh, Jamie, you want to go, and then Clint?
All right, oh, good evening or good morning.
All right, and I'm gonna lie, I think it'd be great if you come up here, sorry. I realized I was trying to make it easy, but still have an easier time seeing you. And hearing you.
Great. I'm the conservation manager with the Tuscadero Mutual Water Company, and we have the state mandated restrictions in place that were adopted, I believe, in 2013. No watering within 48 hours of a significant rain event and all those things, most of which have been in our water Wisen beneficial water policy for as long as I've been there, which is almost 20 years. So those are all in place, but our messaging just hasn't changed. Nick and I and a group of the SLO County Water Partners went down and met with our fellow water conservation folks down in Santa Barbara County, and it's kind of the same message across. You know, we got to continue to keep conserving and just keeping the education out there. And we right now have also partnered with Science Discovery, and are doing our water education in the classrooms for the entire Tuscadero Unified School District, which includes Santa Margarita and the other town that I'm just gonna blank on, but Preston, thank you, Charles. And Preston, and then they also are coming out the last month we had 7 classes, and this week we have, I think, 5 classes coming out and doing what we call our water discovery field trip. When they receive the presentation, we actually pay to bus them down to our well field, and they get out there. They actually get to go down to the river, which is super exciting because most of these kids have not seen the river running this time of the year, and test the soil moisture in the river. And then they get to go inside one of our well treatment buildings and one of our pump buildings as well. But we are also going to be celebrating 110 years of water service this year, and would like to invite you all. We are running a number of tours that John Neal, our general manager, leads. It's a 2-hour tour. It's a fabulous tour if you've not been on it, of our well field treatment buildings. You see the Nascimento turnout. If you go to our website, nwc.us, there is a link where you can sign up. We're having one tomorrow. We'll be having some in the future if you're interested. It's really fascinating. John talks about the hydrology. He talks about PFAS and what we're going to be doing with PFAS. We talk about our water use. It's just, I highly encourage people. I've attended it over and over again. It's fabulous. So we have a really large menu of rebates. We like rebates. We like to have a lot of different rebates. So for our different users, we have a community who have been really aggressive with water conservation. Some people have not at all. But so we do have a rain barrel rebate. It's only 25 cents a gallon. I think it's like max $500 or 500 gallons. So it's not very much, but we like to reward those people who are making those little differences because it all adds up. So we also, last year, it was really exciting. We put into place I wanted to do this for so long. We have a flow sensor rebate, and we all love Flume. Unfortunately, Flume is not going to be working with the direction we're going with our water meters. But there's probably like 7 or 8 other water inline or attachment flow sensor devices out there that residents can use and relay to their phone and things like that. So it's a $100 credit to their account. And we do continue to do our turf conversion because we have lots of turf in a Tuscadero, lots of space to do that. So that's about it. Any questions? All right, yes.
You're dealing with downstream of the water meter. Western Tuscadero is very hilly, lots of unstable soils. So what are your inline losses on your distribution system?
You know what? You should come on the tour and ask John that. Yeah, I can't answer. I don't think I can answer that question right now for you. You like our losses from just pressure and
when all the work you do on one side of the meter is being countered by leakage on the other side.
No, we run a pretty tight ship, and I mean we're reading our wells every month, and it's pretty tight. There's not much leakage going on. That's all we do every day. Yeah.
So I know they aren't apples to apples at all, like Tascadero to Slow, but like how is the, I was gonna ask, how is the 55 gallons per person per day? And do you have
For
some
winter
number?
use, for our base GPCD. Yeah. So we're in, Tascadero is in compliance for what we were set to do. We've seen, when I first started, we were averaging about, in the summer, peak water use around 12 million gallons per day. And now we don't see over like 8.5 and like on a hot July day. So we've seen a decrease there. In the winter, just to be clear, we used to hover around 2 million gallons per day. And because of population increase, we've seen it rising up to about 2.5. We met our best management practices for toilet retrofits for 1.6, like 15 years ago, and we put into place HET rebates. So that's just seeing a Tascadero grow and people moving in and housing getting denser. So.
But you don't have a total gallon, you don't have a number of gallons per day.
Ours is higher than a Tascadero, or higher than San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, well, and
yeah,
it's warmer.
You know, it's in our,
You don't have
our board report on our website. We look at it. We don't look at it in gallons per capita. I think we look at it, see it. I'd have to look and see, but I could get you that information, lots of information. Yeah. I want to say like 130, but I could be wrong.
That's total, right? That's not residential.
Total. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, come on.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, Clint, you're next.
Well, Jamie, I should have taken your solution gone before you, because that's what I was afraid of. Since I'm only a city council member, she's a professional. She has way more answers than I can. But for the city of Grove Beach, though, we're actually pretty nuts and bolts and stuff on this topic. In March, we did go back from mandatory restrictions to voluntary. And that's because that's how our different levels were set up. So basically, all of our conservation incentive programs that existed then exist now. That hasn't changed. All the Casper grass, all this, filters, everything else is still in place, because we're probably 3 years, maybe for lucky 5 years at the most, from going back to mandatory restrictions. So we have a little bit of leeway, but not too far out of this and stuff. So even though we're not doing mandatory restrictions, we are still basically telling everyone continue to conserve. Now, the thing that was interesting during our mandatory restrictions, though, is everyone was conserving already so much that it was becoming problematic on some of the fines, because it's like, well, they already conserved so much. By the time we hit these new levels, they're like, what else do I got to do? So that's why the voluntary aspect of it's still being emphasized almost to the degree as if people are going to return that way. So for us, with Lopez Lake is one of our main water sources, with partnerships with Rio Grande and Pismo Beach on Central Coast Blue recycled water, that might balance things out. But for now, that's the update that I know Andy had asked for as chair. That's where we're at.
Awesome.
Hopefully that's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
We're only over 2.5 square miles of the city, so not too much action going on to luckily know where to find all of our water customers.
Right. Thank you. All right. Do you have any others who want to share what their jurisdiction is doing? No? All right. Okay, good. Well, we'll move on. So, sorry, Jeff Edwards, you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
Yes, while we're on the topic of conservation, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about the conservation that's occurring and that has occurred in Los Osos. We have a groundwater basin retrofit to build program. It's confined really to indoor plumbing retrofits, and it applies to any new development that uses groundwater. The board approved the Title 19 amendment, and it became effective in 2008. And fundamentally, it requires a 2-to-1 earning of credits for conservation to demand. So it's twice the demand one needs to conserve. And early on, it included mostly toilets and shower heads, but today's program also includes hot water recirculation pumps. One thing I hadn't heard about. And also there's residential and commercial washing machine exchanges. And And this, unlike rebate programs, the Title 19 program includes all labor and materials. So the property owner or recipient of the conservation effort doesn't have to pay anything. Since 2008, the urban water demand has been reduced from over 1,600 acre feet per year to just over 1,000 acre feet per year. And there have been a number or multiple county and water purveyor rebate programs, but the Title 19 program has been the longest standing and most productive in Los Osos. The county, back in 2014, when people started hooking up to the sewer, the folks that had 1.6 gallon per flush toilets were all exempted. So they didn't have to retrofit. Likewise with the 2.5 gallon per minute shower heads. So we estimate that there are 5,000 plus 1.6 gallon per flush toilets out there that by today's high efficiency standards could be reduced to about a gallon a flush. This would equate to probably about 100 acre feet across all the retrofits. And then just to conclude, the county is sponsoring an update to the Title 19 program. They've hired the Madaus water management firm to review the plan, make some refinements, and set us up for the next 20 years and really strengthen the program. And this Title 19 program is consistent with the broader county policies regarding water neutrality. So I think it fits nicely into your discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff. All right, so let's wrap that up, and thank you everyone for participating in that, and keep conservation top of mind still. Okay, so just a few business items to update here. First is the update from our ad hoc committee on the bylaws. We did get a chance to meet earlier this week. We met by Zoom. Let's see, we had just trying to think who was there. So it was me, Deborah, Christine, Linda, Eric, and Brendan, and Tom. Thank you. I was gonna. And Clint, sorry. Thank you. Yes. So, and so we went through the bylaws, and we've kind of done a first pass at some items that are just cleanup language that were pretty non-controversial. And then we identified kind of 5 items that are going to need a second round of discussion and research. One is just kind of purpose, mission, purview of the body. And so that's the biggest discussion that might come back to this body as a whole. Membership, whether or not membership for all categories should be limited to residents only of SLO County, or if folks live outside of SLO County but are representing in-county organizations, is that good enough? So that was a conversation. We had some discussions about quorum. Right now it's not half, it's a lower number, a third or whatever, and or even less than that. Yeah. It's somewhere around there. So so we're talking about quorum, possible term limits. I think that was for officers actually. And then maybe some clarification about ad hoc membership and subcommittees and that type of thing. So those are the high points. We're meeting again in a couple of weeks to talk about it, and then we'll bring it back to this body. Membership, we've also trying to, within the membership categories, we're also talking about perhaps expanding the definition of agriculture at large to kind of be in the business of agriculture. Right now, it specifically says production, and that might limit who can serve on that committee. So we're talking about that as well. Those are kind of the high points. Yeah.
May I just add,
sure.
A couple of the points that we talked about. Brendan is going to be running by county council before our next meeting because there were some concerns of what we can and can't do, or how our rules can and cannot
be written.
Yeah, thank you. Good point. Great. Okay, so more on that to come. Let's see. And then ongoing updates, as usual, I'm just going to quickly kind of say each category. And if you want to raise your hand. Actually, at this point, does anybody have anything on the ongoing updates that they'd like to hit on? Nick, then Greg. Okay, let's just do that rather than go through the whole line items. And then Steph.
DWR did approve the GSP for the slow basin, so we are now in the implementation phase, which is when the real work begins.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, super good news. Greg.
Thank you. I don't know how many people here have seen the GSI 6 annual report on the Pasco Basin. So this was delivered to the Department of Water Resources on April 1st. One thing that caught my eye right away was there's 6 different groups of basic crops. Each of those crops gives the acreage. So we have just over 37,000 acres, 37,600 of irrigated ag in North County over the basin. Those crops have water duty factor. When you look at the next page, they give the amount of water that was extracted, but they're using what's called ET now, evapotranspiration. It's the evaporation off the plants and soil. It doesn't really measure the extraction, but these crops can only use extracted water. There's a 21,000 acre foot difference. They've been over irrigating by 21,000 acre feet of water, because that's 80,000 of evaporation and 58,000 of actual what should have been used. So that's a major problem. And with the ET, they're going to be able to narrow down to quarter-acre spots using satellite. So we don't know who's over irrigating and who's doing what. I'm on the monitoring network expanded TAC team. We're having our 3rd meeting tomorrow. And we're working on, we have grant money to add at least 100 wells in places where we don't have wells. The state's paying for 4 other wells for us and some string gauges and a few other things. So that's going pretty rapidly. Wayne got about $8 million for what we're doing up there. So everything's going really good. But if anybody gets a chance, they're going to be looking at this report, and it's really easy to see the 3 specific areas where we have issues. Our 2 problems, which were shallow wells and the interconnectivity between surface water and groundwater. And there's also a program out there, and I don't know if anybody's seen that shows when the helicopter went over and did the magnetic thing.
Yep.
It showed where all the soils were, where the water could go, and it confirmed, where our best recharge areas are.
Yeah, very cool. I got Steph, then Tom.
Hi, everybody. I was hoping to get clarification on something that came up at last meeting when we were getting an update on the flood control channel and the creek manual breach was shown in a graphic, Brandon. And I had a different understanding of what had occurred there. So I was hoping that I could get some update on if there really was a manual breach in the flood control channel at essentially the most downstream area within the state parks property. Was there manual breach? And if so, how can I get more information about that?
Thanks, Steph. I think we captured all the questions that I couldn't answer on the spot in a written update at the end of the ongoing updates. And so there were no dunes removed as part of the manual breach. I know that was a specific question.
Audio issues on that too, so please follow up.
Steph,
So are you saying there was a manual breach? Yes, there was.
There was a manual breach to outlet the floodwaters faster.
And was that on state parks property?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Steph, why don't you email me and I can connect you with Brandon in Public Works, who's leading those efforts.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steph.
Thanks. Tom, did you have something on this?
Just following up on Greg's comment, I think that report sounds very interesting. I'm gonna ask maybe Brandon to include a link to that report in a minute.
Is it in the ongoing updates already?
I don't know if the link is in there, but we can put it in there.
It's already included in your handout.
Oh, is it? All right.
It says, Sloan County, CA, Paso Basin.
Yeah, it should be available there.
Okay, thank you.
Right, not that's right. That should have all
Yeah.
of the relevant documents. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lily.
All right, any others on the ongoing updates?
So it's not really an update, but since you're talking about, if there's any chance we could get a link to the card.
Nick, yeah, could you
I'll upload it to the website when we're done. Yep.
attach it with
To our
the link or
meeting
whatever?
page, I should say.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, anything else on ongoing updates? Okay, future agenda items. We are meeting next month, June 7th. We'll have a presentation for county staff on Lopez Lake. Kind of a little bit of its history and what its potential going forward. We'll get an update on the master water report. We'll talk about the bylaws presumably, and then that would be a good time to also consider recommendations for at-large applications as they come in. Right, that's our timing for that one. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other agenda proposed desired agendas updates? Yeah.
So to Greg's point, the open ET software that they're using, I think is gonna be a pretty widely used tool. It'd be interesting to get a presentation.
Yeah, we're trying.
Is that
we're
what
trying,
Blaine's-
Yeah, we've had some conflicts with Blaine, our groundwater sustainability director, for the next couple of meetings, but you know, that's on target hopefully for the fall. It was-
Yeah.
We've done like a general overview of ET before from the UC Cooperative Extension. Yeah, more like how it's being applied and used or potentially could be applied and used. Yeah, I think it's time.
Right, it was
On a
kind of
radar.
academic before, now it's on the ground. And we will take a break, for those of you new to WRAC, we'll take July and August off. And then we'll be back in September, hopefully with that one as one of our early meetings. So yeah, I agree. Anything else agenda planning wise?
A couple of environmental documents will be coming out possibly before June 7th. And obviously with the summer break, it would be awkward to create subcommittees and then get back together. But even as individuals, people might want to be aware of them. One that may be coming out in the next month or so is the Dana Reserve Project, and the other is the Diablo decommissioning.
Great, thank you, Eric.
Have substantial water implications. And I might just mention that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is coming to town this evening, and there is a remote option for participating in their meeting. And then tomorrow evening, the Tribune is sponsoring a forum with Senator Laird and various other people on offshore wind at the Morro Bay High School at 6:30.
Great. Put that under, yeah, great. Public comment for items not on the agenda. Is there anything, anybody else that we haven't covered under other categories? No? All right. With that, we will adjourn until our next regular meeting, June 7th, 2023 at 1:30 here in the library community room. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.